The key takeaway is making sure that you are consistent across all of the different platforms and also willing to make sure you're authentic, but make a splash if you need to. I'm Charlotte Crowther, and this is SEO in 2026.
Charlotte, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
My tip at the moment is don't ignore digital and brand PR. There's something that's kind of really becoming entwined with SEO and also GEO and LLMs. Ignoring branded digital PR is going to have a large impact on your visibility, particularly as we're seeing a move towards a zero-click world.
Okay, so what are the differences between traditional and digital when you say brand PR and you talk about them blurring? So where are they blurring and where do they remain separate?
It's a very good question. I think kind of back when marketing first started, we kind of thought of marketing as an entire piece, kind of traditional PR fed into that. But with the rise of SEO, particularly in kind of the early 2000s, there became across kind of a brand new side of things, which was link building. And that has since morphed into what kind of many of us now know as digital PR. But we've been seeing those kind of blurring of the lines coming together, because we can no longer look at kind of traditional PR, which is kind of newspapers, radio, TV, and digital PR, which is kind of getting online content, as two separate things, because actually a brand is living and breathing. It should be the same messages everywhere a consumer is seeing it. So it's making sure that we're working together, making content work as hard as possible for that brand, but also really importantly, staying true to that brand, true to the brand voice and true to the brand values. So no matter where a consumer sees you, everything aligns.
Yeah, fine. It's funny, actually. I mean, often maybe digital marketers will blame traditional marketers or PR people as not understanding digital, but it's kind of the other way around as well, because as a digital marketer, my instinct is to go, TV, radio, is that still relevant? And I guess it is. I guess positives can be gained from that. So what can digital marketers or digital PR specialists learn from more traditional PR people?
Yeah, it's that age-old debate, right? Kind of the agencies or the digital marketers that are kind of concerned around how your traditional PR team is kind of holding their contacts, wanting to stay true to the brand, whereas kind of the traditional PR team don't want the digital marketers to be stepping on their toes or anything like that. So it's really an education piece from both sides. There's a lot that us as digital marketers can learn from kind of more traditional PR teams. So learn about building up those journalist relationships, learn about kind of making sure you're landing your press and your messaging as wide as possible. But also kind of, I think the traditional PR teams as well can be learning from us. So making, again, it all comes down to what I love to say and making that content work as hard as possible. How can we pivot it? Can it also work for social media? Can we get a spokesperson talking about it on TV or radio? And can we make sure that we're sharing newsworthy content that online publishers would love?
That was interesting in what you said there to begin with. You were talking about ensuring that you're building up that database of journalist contacts, but you also talked about the importance of ensuring that your message landed as wide as possible. And they almost seem like two different ends of a spectrum, because I would think that your mission, if you were to build a one-on-one relationship with a journalist, would be to give a story uniquely to them, but that might affect negatively your broad coverage.
It's about knowing what the journalists want and also what you can do with a campaign. It's kind of, we create campaigns that have got multiple different angles. So we can share it with different journalists who will take different information and different pieces from that one campaign. So it's about building that relationship with the journalist so that when an idea comes about, you're going, I know exactly which publication, which journalist would love to hear this. But also, actually, there's another way that I can craft that, or I can also add in this additional angle, which would work for this journalist and then this journalist. So it's making that content work as hard as possible and considering all of the different angles that you can push.
Got you. Okay, so it's almost keeping the same piece, keeping the same data, but having a think about the angle in relation to the data that's right for a particular journalist, and perhaps even coming up with a message for them to make it easy for them to publish.
Exactly that.
Okay. And you also say that relevance is everything. So what do you mean by that?
Yeah, relevance is becoming more and more important, especially with all of the changes that we're seeing with regards to AIOs, so AI overviews, LLMs, and kind of the way that people are searching. So gone are the days where you can create a campaign which would be kind of newsworthy, you get lots of coverage, but there's nothing relevant to do with the brand. We've all seen these kind of campaigns, best cities for this, best cities for that don't have any relevance back to the client. This used to work 5-10 years ago because journalists just wanted content. However, we need to be thinking more about kind of what are people Googling? Where do we want those brands to be seen in those searches? And I say, what are people Googling, but also what are people searching in LLMs? What are people chat GPTing? Because the way that consumers are searching is changing, and we need to be making sure that we're keeping up with that and changing our tactics in order to land where people are.
So it's funny you say that. So in relation to SEO, obviously 10 years ago, you used to be able to get away with driving less relevant traffic, driving perhaps thousands of visitors a day, but from keyword phrases that were less likely to convert. But nowadays, you're more likely to want to drive less users, but users that are more likely to send positive signals to search engines. So in terms of actually building that relevance from a PR perspective, I guess what you'd advocate is understanding the audience that you want to target, and building that message towards them. So in terms of how you go about doing that, if you're working on behalf of a client, what kind of conversations do you have with them to understand their audience? And is there anything else that you do in order to actually further hone that to ensure that message is as relevant as possible?
Yeah, I just want to talk to that first point of what you said there about kind of it used to be okay just to drive numbers, because I think that's really important. If you were KPI'd on driving numbers and driving traffic, that's one thing. But I think the way in which the industry has been moving is that it's not just about those numbers anymore. It's not just about the thousands of people that can be coming to site, but it's about making sure we're driving the right kind of traffic. How many of those thousands were actually going to click purchase? How many of those people are actually investing or purchasing something from the company? So when it comes to kind of PR and talking to clients, it's really important to get an understanding of what is their aim of this. Is it that actually they just want to get their name out there? If they need to get their name out there, they want to make a big kind of song and a dance, they want people to know them, then there's lots of different tactics we can play. So we can do bigger kind of out-of-home campaigns, some experiential PR, just basically getting eyeballs on the brand. But actually, if it's about conversion, that's where we really need to dig into their target audience. What are their target audience doing? What are they reading? What are they watching? What radio station are they turning on when they first wake up in the morning to get the morning's news? And as soon as you start thinking like that target audience, that's when you can see the publications that they will be hearing, seeing, reading. And there we know what we need to do. We need to create campaigns that will land in those publications.
And you also say that your PR campaigns need to align tightly with your brand's core message and products. So how do you go about doing that?
I think so. You need to make sure that you're being true to the brand, that you're not saying something that kind of is completely off the wall, that kind of a PR campaign isn't going against messaging that you put out on social media a week prior. So it's really about talking to kind of our clients, spending time with them, knowing what they will say and what they won't say. But also there is a balance. This is something that we talk a lot about in PR, is that it isn't everything, not everything that a brand does is newsworthy to a journalist. Opening a store isn't necessarily the most newsworthy thing. However, can you do something that will make opening that store newsworthy? Can you pull a stunt which is going to get kind of eyeballs on it? Can you get a celebrity involved? Can you create a world first? Can you do something that suddenly makes it newsworthy?
Do you find that when you're talking with clients for the first time that they are quite succinct in being able to tell you what their brand's core message is all about? Or is that something that you have to actually handhold them with and actually help them develop that? And if so, how do you go about doing that?
I think a lot of brands come to us with brand guidelines. They know what they want their brand to look like. They know what they want it to think about. But I think we've all seen brand guidelines before, and kind of there's pages and pages of things and colours and messaging, and these are our core pillars. But it's actually then talking to people and going, okay, this is the rule book, but what does this actually mean in practice? So getting underneath the bones of it, getting underneath kind of the brand and talking to the people, right? Because a business is the people. It's the people who are doing the messaging. It's the people who are doing the websites, the people who are talking to the consumers. So getting to grips with that and where they stand on things is really important as well. So it's kind of taking those brand guidelines and that messaging, but really humanizing it and understanding what it actually means in living, breathing terms.
You say that you need to know what your brand stands for. I mean, that seems quite a tricky thing to define if a business hasn't thought of it beforehand. Are you able to share an example of a great summary of what a brand stands for, and perhaps some mistakes that brands make in terms of actually not doing that well enough?
Yeah, I think in today's kind of age, authenticity is everything. That is the currency. And I think that's what I really mean when I say, what does a brand stand for? So you know what is its authentic voice. I think the perfect kind of correlation to this would be kind of an influencer that you follow on social media. If they suddenly have an advert which is so against what they are doing in their kind of day-to-day usual social posts, that's going to ring alarm bells, and we're going to think, are they being authentic? So that's what I mean, kind of translating that from the influencer back to the brand. Are they suddenly saying something which doesn't feel right? And yeah, like I say, being authentic is so important in this day and age.
And a last thing, in reference to what you've said before, you said don't shy away from bold decisions. What kind of bold decisions are you talking about here?
I'm talking about calling people out. If kind of there is one standpoint that you are willing to stand behind as a brand, and kind of someone, a politician or something like that, is going against that, then call them out, add your name into that conversation. I think, again, kind of we're seeing a lot of brands, or we saw a lot of brands shy away from these things. Kind of there's a balance again, kind of, is it go big or go home? Are you willing to take the risk? Kind of the risk might not pay off, but if it does, that's when you get some of your award-winning campaigns. That's when you get the national coverage. That's when people remember you. So it's being memorable and sometimes willing to take that stance, so long as it's authentic, is what's important.
Yeah, I mean, there's some great examples of brands that have used social media, especially fast food brands, actually, that have used social media and jumped in there and been bold and got an incredible amount of coverage because of it. They've owned mistakes possibly as well. Is social media the place really to be bold, do you think?
I think it depends. I think social media is perhaps a good place to kind of trial it out. So immediately when you were talking there, I was thinking about kind of the classic McDonald's versus Burger King debate. That's something that kind of we all know there is kind of, as living consumers, we know that there is a debate there. Kind of that's something that we talk about. Are you a McDonald's fan? Are you a Burger King fan? But that lives throughout everything. I've seen them pull ads before, kind of next to each other in newspapers. We've seen the billboards. We've seen kind of them on social media. So that's authentic. If you saw something on social media, if you saw the billboard, you know that that's true to the brand because we're seeing that everywhere. So that's, again, what I mean about keeping that messaging consistent throughout.
I tell you what jumped out for me. It was a campaign back in 2018, and it was when KFC ran out of chicken in a few different restaurants, and they redid their logo to FCK instead of KFC, and it just got an incredible amount of online coverage, and it seemed just to resonate with whoever their target market was. You know, they owned the mistake, but made light of it, but just admitted that they'd made a mess up and hoped they wouldn't do it again.
Exactly. Just owning it, kind of showing humility, showing that authenticness, that goes a long way. I can't believe it was that long ago. But yeah, that was all over the news, wasn't it? KFC's kind of being closed down. Kind of, I can remember having or seeing interviews on the TV of people who'd gone to get their chicken and it wasn't there. And this is kind of where it as slightly into crisis comes, because it could have been a big crisis corporate response, kind of what do we do here, putting out thanks. But actually that's where the creativity comes in, because crisis comms would have only got you so far. That would have kind of made you yesterday's news, kind of your news publishers aren't going to be then reporting on it. But actually having that creative way to flip it, like you say, just we know the iconic font, just changing those titles, changing those letters, and we all know what we mean. We've all been there. So it's, again, having that humility.
Charlotte, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
The key takeaway is making sure that you are consistent across all of the different platforms and also willing to make sure you're authentic, but make a splash if you need to.
Charlotte Crowther is Senior Digital PR Manager at Kaizen. Find out more over at kaizen.co.uk. Charlotte, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thank you so much for having me.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at seoin2026.com.